Welcome to Things Go Sideways. This is a space for honest stories about moments when life doesn't just get hard, it falls apart in ways that we just absolutely cannot ignore. When the body starts telling the truth before the mind is ready, and when the path you've worked on and worked toward stops being viable, well, you might just be having a sideways moment in your life. These aren't stories about healing as a highlight reel. They're stories about reckoning. They're stories about what happens when something inside you says, this isn't working anymore. So today I'm joined by Kathryn Eipl. Kathryn's work now focuses on nervous system regulation, emotional strategy, and embodied healing. But that work was born from a period in her life where things went sideways in ways she couldn't manage, suppress, or outwork. Kathryn, thank you for being here and for trusting this space with a story that didn't start out as a method. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you today. When you look back and you're looking back at your life and you're thinking about all that's gone on, what was the sideways moment in your life or career that you couldn't ignore, even if you tried?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to share this story because, yeah, sometimes life on paper can seem perfect when you're going through it. Job, family, career, and sometimes those feelings don't align where you're like, I'm looking at my life on paper and it seems great. However, I don't feel that way. So my moment is one of those. I was working in the entertainment industry for live events, more like corporate themed entertainment. And it was everything that I was working for. It was what I had centered my whole life around, achieving that. And I was there. And I remember it was opening night of the big show. The reason why that park was able to run year round and thousands of people were coming in through the gates and they were just like running into the park. And me and a couple of my colleagues were looking. There was a little building that had like a flat roof. So we all went onto the roof because we're like, it's opening night. Let's watch the crowds come in. And I just remember watching it and I was like, I should feel more. Like, I should have more of a like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I did this. I was just expecting that I should feel some sort of ecstatic joy because this project I'd worked on for months was like finally here. It was opening. It was like the big moment. And I felt a sort of emptiness inside where I was like, this is cool. And I recognized that thousands of people are coming to see a project that I have helped work on and bring to fruition for them. Yet I don't feel satisfied. I just feel like, okay, it's another day. This is cool. So that would be like the defining moment of where things started to go sideways for me. Because I also was checking in with my coworkers where I'm like, how are you feeling? How does this feel to you? And they're like, amazing. I can't believe it's here. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Okay.
But you weren't. And so, like, what did you think in that moment and later when you were thinking about, like, why? Why am I not feeling more? Why is this not hitting me the same way that it is for everyone else? Were you trying to find, like, reasons why? Or, like, what did you do with that?
I was trying to find reasons why. I was trying to find a way to justify what those feelings were and where they were coming from, because it was a point where up until that moment, I never stopped to question it. I just kept working towards it. Once I graduated college, I was already enrolled in a grad school, and I made it my goal that after I crossed the stage at graduation for grad school, that I would already have a job that I would be showing up to work at in the field that I wanted to work in. So then that moment happened, and I was like, great. So I literally went from graduating, like I think on a Friday, and then working on that coming Monday.
Wow.
And so many people were like, take like a week off. And I'm like, nah, I want to like get in it. So I just immersed myself in it from day one. And that moment was that final space where I could just like breathe about it and not have to think, oh, I have to go here, I have to do this, I have to meet with security, I need to check in with costumes. So that moment was just that pause. And then my mind was like, come on though. Like, are you really that happy? Like you've just been like living your whole life in rush mode.
Wow. So there's like this, you're beginning to get these inklings of misalignment, but that's not convenient, is it? It's like,
No.
you don't want to hear that. You're probably trying to tell your mind like, no, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Like I'm happy. I've got everything I want. And yet there are these things beginning to bubble up and coming out in your mind that are saying, no,
Mhm.
there's something that's not in alignment with where you want to go. So when you were identifying this, in the midst of identifying this misalignment, how did it get to the point where you acted on it? Because I know when you're in the middle of something in life and it's not convenient, especially when everybody kind of looks at you and they're like, oh, great, you're happy, you're doing well, you're
Mhm.
right on your little path that makes total sense, you know, shaking that up. There's all kinds of stuff around us that says, don't shake things up. So, what happened next?
Well, it took me kind of getting to a low point mentally and emotionally before I made a real change because I just felt like stuck in this rut. And I remember thinking so many days, like, okay, this is what people do in America. Like, we go to school, we get the degree, then we get the job, we have the job. Okay, so we go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, wake up, do the same thing. And I was realizing that I didn't want that lifestyle for myself. I didn't want to be living to work. I wanted to be able to work to live and like have those fun experiences. So I didn't want to accept that the entertainment industry wasn't for me, that was no longer in alignment. So I really just kept ignoring those thoughts. And in order to not feel them or think about them, that would lead into like, oh, I'll just have a few drinks after work with the guys, or I'll go home and smoke so I don't have to feel how I'm feeling. And it wasn't until I caught myself in that vicious cycle. Like I would be sitting in meetings, I'm like, man, this meeting's so upsetting. I can't wait to go home so I can smoke a bowl. And I'm like, I should not be having this thought
Yeah.
in a meeting. Like I should not have this thought in
Yeah.
something that what I thought I would love to do. Like clearly if I'm having that thought, it's something that I don't love anymore and for whatever reasons are not aligned with who I have become. So I'm desperate to kind of start getting out of that because it was also a depressive mind space. And drinking is never going to fix that. Like drinking is only going to make the depression worse because it just
Yeah.
numbs you.
Well, let's
It
talk about that because I think that that's so true. I mean, obviously, at this point, you're telling your story because you recognize, you can look back and you say, okay, I see what I was doing there. And
right.
these are real thoughts I was having. Like, I can't wait until I can just decompress after this day. And certainly once in a while, you might have a day where it's like, wow, this is tough. But if on the daily you're thinking like, oh my gosh, when is this? Like, this is your life day to day.
Yeah.
What is happening in your life on the daily that is so difficult that you're wanting to escape from it? And I think that that's what you're talking about, which is like what smoking a bowl or like having a drink or whatever. And in our society, it's so easy to do that, where it's like,
Right.
I mean, let's go have drinks after, and what a day. Oh, yeah, what a day. And no one thinks twice about it. Let's go. And you know what? Let's just sit back and watch TV and, like,
Right.
just relax and like have some snacks and, like, and I feel like that hiding away from dealing with what it is that's really eating at you, it's too easy for many of us to escape. when it's really something about, wow, if I have a hard look at my life, yeah, it might be disruptive, but maybe I need to make some changes about something else that would make it so I wasn't looking to escape all the time. So like, how did you figure that? So you were getting to that point, this is impacting your day-to-day life where you're like, gosh, I just want to get done with this work and get an escape and do something else. And when things began to break down, like when did you start to understand that the escape mechanisms that you had were no longer working for you either?
Oh, geez, that's a hard one. I haven't actually tried to pinpoint that moment. I think it was one night I had, like, as you were saying, is very easy to, in our culture, in our society, be like, oh, well, let's just go out for happy hour. We're getting off work, bar's right here. Similar situation that I would do all too often. Like at first I was like, oh no, it's just habits. Because a lot of us, there was literally a bar coming right out of our office building. So we would go and have a few drinks because it was LA. So there's traffic. So waste time.
Until the traffic eases up. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Keep in mind this whole time, I only lived a 10-minute drive away. I didn't have to get on freeways.
It was
like for me, the traffic would be minimal, but for my coworkers, like they lived further away. So I'd be like, you know what? Sure, why not? And then I realized I'm just doing this as an excuse to drink and trying to make it acceptable. When I had that realization, I remember like we were all getting ready to leave the bar and I went home and I was like, well, that's depressing. And I just grabbed a bottle of wine and poured myself a glass. And then I just kept drinking home alone to not really think about those thoughts. But what do you do when you are telling yourself, okay, well, I'm going to sit with this. So you pour yourself a drink and then you keep drinking it. And then eventually you're in an altered state. So you're not actually comprehending or even remembering what you were wanting to look into or think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I fell asleep on the couch, woke up at like 4 a.m, and I remember thinking like, okay, well, I only have like 2 hours before I have to get up to go to work. I guess I'm going to go and sleep in my bed until my alarm goes off. And as I was standing up, I was like, there has to be more to life than this. Like, I refuse to let this be how I live. And from that moment, I would start to pay attention to when I wanted to drink and what the reason was that I wanted to drink. And more often than not, it was to escape or to avoid feeling. And so I slowly started doing it less and less. And then I also found I started going back to a local yoga studio because when I would do yoga, I noticed that that would actually help calm me down because the classes that I would start taking were vinyasa or power flow. So they were so fast that I didn't have a chance to like think about what was going on. So for me, that was an opportunity for my mind to be off because there's an instructor telling me what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't even have to know like what comes next. I just need to know where I need to be and I can look at the instructor for that.
Yeah.
Simple.
And you're in the moment and you're in your body. And so you're just like, that's a relief for you. And it's also a healthy release in a way too. So like, that's really interesting.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So you're going through that. You're beginning to connect the dots on, okay, this is when I'm wanting to do these behaviors that they're not behaviors I'm happy with in my life, and they're not bringing me anything good. And then you're also identifying things that you can do that are leading you in a different direction, that are happy, or things that are able to get you out of that state where you want to be doing these behaviors, and things that are working for you that you're like, oh yeah, okay, like, yeah, this yoga class, I tend to have an easier time when I'm active in that, Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So then I started taking a yoga teacher training at that same studio, really just to learn more about the body and alignment so that I could do my own yoga practice at home and not have to work a different schedule into my already busy entertainment schedule. So in the process of doing that, that's also was a big motivating factor for me to drink even less, because that was something that we would talk about. We would talk about the philosophies of yoga in our teacher training, and the instructors were also good about kind of like debunking like the random myths that you hear about yogis of they all have to be vegan, eat organic, all these things. And one of the things they said is something along the lines of you start to find what feels good for your body as you're moving through healing.
Mhm.
And one of them shared that she stopped drinking the more she got into her yoga practice because she was able to feel the effects of it on her body. And it started to feel like it was a foreign substance, which it is, but most of us don't have that body awareness. So as I was going through the yoga program, I really started to acknowledge, and like when I would drink, I would really take time to see how it felt in my body. Like, were there any areas that were maybe tensing or showing signs of distress in some way? And I would also like do an assessment after I drank, like how does the body feel now? And after I would drink, I would notice that there's this sort of disconnection that would happen between my body and my energy, where my body would feel one way, but my energy is completely the opposite. And
Interesting. Yeah.
and feeling that feeling feels very uncomfortable because you know that there's a part of you that you can't control at that moment. So it's like the circuitry board was like becoming further apart, and I was losing the awareness of certain things
Wow.
when I would drink. And that was enough for me to be like, yeah, no, I like how my body feels now that I'm actually learning how to move it and how it feels and where there are muscles that have been stuck for a long time. So once I was drinking less, that's when I started just having all these emotional releases in my own personal yoga practice, where lots of events or situations in my past where I was trying to ignore them. I just wanted to believe it didn't happen. I wanted to believe that I didn't take certain actions that I 100% did. So that's also what I was drinking to avoid feeling.
Yeah.
And now that I had removed that, it's like, okay, all these feelings are coming back. And it's like, they might be painful. It might be what I don't want to hear. However, like, these are true circumstances, and I know what it means to now avoid thinking about them. So let's get through it, because the only way through it is to go through it. And that was also the time in which I noticed I had to accept that the entertainment industry wasn't for me. So it was definitely a very slow goodbye, because it was something I was reluctant to do. I spent my whole life training to be a project manager for live events and productions. And here I am after working in it for, a decade. I'm like, yeah, not for me anymore.
So let's talk about that, because I think a lot of people, we talked about the discomfort of disruption and this idea of like, well, nobody wants to bring in something that feels uncomfortable to their lives. And certainly I imagine that after you've geared and planned and trained and gotten all of this experience, and all these people around you are like, oh, you're succeeding. You're doing exactly what you said you were going to do, and good job, and all this stuff. Internally, you're like, this isn't right. Like, none of this is in alignment with what I need to be doing right now. And you had to reckon with it. Now, there are things like bills, there are things like relationships, there are things like other people's expectations that you at that point had to say, okay, like I faced up to some stuff that I feel uncomfortable with about myself and about maybe things I hadn't wanted to think about. Now I'm facing the facts. This is not the place that I want to spend the rest of my life working in. This is not the industry for me. What did you do next? Because I imagine that each day as the awareness is building and as you're becoming more in tune with your body, you're showing up to work, you're learning things about yourself, you're moving past the bar at the end of the day and like going out of the building, like all these new behaviors and discoveries about yourself. But at some point you're like, yeah, and this job is not right either. How did you decide what to do next? What happened?
Well, I stayed in the entertainment industry for a little bit longer, is what happened. I left that company and got picked up for another project that was going overseas. So I was like, it was everybody in my industry and my closest cohorts were all going over there working on these big projects. So I was like, I'll be in the club if I go. So like, okay, let's sign up for this resume builder. And at that time, I have already also started teaching yoga on the side and was getting attuned in Reiki as well. So I'm attempting to see if I can live this, what turned out to be a double life, because I had one where I was showing up as like the yoga teacher, meditation guide, playing the singing bowls and for full moon ceremonies. And this other one, I'm trying to present as this professional corporate themed entertainment project manager. And
those things don't necessarily feel like they dovetail neatly together. You know what I'm saying? It's
exactly. And I started to feel like I was just living two lives, where it was like I had one wardrobe that was for the entertainment side, and then I had my yoga wardrobe, which consists mostly of leggings. So it got to feel like I was just playing roles when I was doing those things, like I was acting it. And that led to more inner confusion, because I'm like, well, who am I then? What is the real me? Do I enjoy one more than the other? Like, do I not even like these? Like, what is actually true? So I brought it back to my body, and I would pay attention to how my physical body felt when I was in entertainment, working in the office, and how it felt when I was doing yoga. And when I was doing yoga, it felt great. And I would notice that a lot of the students that would attend my classes would come up and like thank me after class. And there was this one class right before going to work. It started at 6:30 in the morning. So I wouldn't have a big crowd for that class. But then there was one person who showed up and she was like, oh, it's essentially like a private. I'm like, yeah. So her and I just got to have fun. We catered more to her body and what she was experiencing, so we could really give her the movement and the stretches she needed for her body that day. And at the end, she just said, she was like, I'm not looking forward to going to work because it's just like a big, stressful day. She was also working in entertainment, but doing something different at a different company. And she's like, but now I feel prepared. I feel ready. My mindset is in a more positive place. And she's like, so yeah, I'm just going to go and it's going to get done and it's going to be great. And it was in that moment after she left where I'm like, wow, I work on projects for hundreds, for thousands of people. And that comment from one person who was in my one class has made my day.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's illuminating, right? Because
Hmm.
here you've gone through all of these different experiences where it could be impacting thousands, and it's like this one person having this result, feeling this way, sharing this with you. And that's what really hits. So you're like, I'm discovering some yet more new things about myself. Having this discovery, how long was it around about after that for you to make a full transition into? I imagine you ended up leaving the entertainment industry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up walking off that project maybe 2 or 3 months after that. And that was just a buildup of so many different factors. And part of that project was a reminder and a remembrance for me that so often in the themed entertainment world, contracts will change from the offer letter that you originally signed, deals will fall through. The whole project can get reshifted if one person gets moved to another project or gets a raise or things. And when that happens, as a company is just moving people around like they're just parts. Like you lose being a person because at the end of the
Mm,
day, it's business. And so it becomes like business is that main priority and it's less about caring about the people. So that project was about to have me go overseas without getting paid for a month
my
to
God.
2 months.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this. I was like, this is horrible. This is not how I want to live. Like, I had already been, I think I was at 5 different yoga studios in LA at that point as well. So I'm like, I gotta find coverage or tell these people I'm not coming back indefinitely. Like, I was like, I'm literally gonna lose this momentum. And so I had to make a choice. Was I gonna go with what was better for my body physically, mentally, emotionally, or was I gonna go through and get the credit for the resume? And I was like, well, if I'm leaving the entertainment industry, the credit
It does,
doesn't
yeah.
matter.
When you started going more in depth into your yoga experience and really connecting with your body, so you were attending the sessions, you were beginning to put things together as far as, wow, yeah, you know what? I have all these ways of escaping, but now I've found yoga and now I'm learning more about yoga and I'm taking training and all these different things. What was the time period like? Because I imagine that some people might listen to this and they might be thinking, well, I'm kind of interested in yoga, or I'm interested in Reiki, or I'm interested in, I don't know, juggling. And like, I have this side thing that I'm doing that maybe that's my thing, like Kathryn's. How long was that whole process before, as you were getting more involved? Because you were talking about working in these different studios and stuff like that. So all along the time, you are getting this experience and stuff and this training and like really investing in your yoga while yet living this double life sort of
Yeah.
and still maintaining your career that everyone knew you for before in the themed entertainment world. So was that like a year, 2 years? Like how long was that whole process? Do you know?
That was about a year and a half.
Year and a half. That's
So,
actually not that long, if you think about it. Like that's a huge
yeah.
transition in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah. And because it was like, first you have, for me, the cycle was like, okay, first you have the thoughts, like you have identified there is a misalignment.
Hmm.
And when you first identify it, there's that, like, I don't want to believe it. I want to be in denial.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just makes you mad or makes you think that you're a failure because it's not aligned with what you thought or what all those around you thought. So I had that for a little bit of time before I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then I got into drinking more, smoking more. So then it's like, oh, it's the solution. Really, it's a Band-Aid, and it's a poorly designed Band-Aid. No one should try that, but sometimes you need
Yeah.
to go through it. So it's like, that's what I needed. And when I had that rock bottom moment with it, I'd already started going back to yoga at that point, but
Mhm.
I wasn't in the teacher training at that point. So it's like that moment happened. And then that's when I was like, okay, I need to do more yoga. I need to go into this. And
Got
then
it.
that kind of launched into the teacher training and
There's
the
like these
teach.
little changes and discoveries along the way,
Right.
and all this time you're gathering this information. I think that that's so interesting because a lot of times it can seem like if you were to tell somebody, well, in a year and a half, you're going to change your life, like, you'd be like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But I'm
Hmm.
sure that in that time, like incrementally as you're going through, you're just making new discoveries and decisions along the way that are supporting things that you are saying, like, this feels right. This is more in alignment with who I am. And
Hmm.
you're feeding and fostering that. So you've gotten to this point where you're like, yeah, it's time. And also the universe has delivered a great opportunity in the fact that it's also a bad business move for you to go ahead and take this career building, resume building opportunity. And you're like, okay, so now what? Now what am I going to focus on?
Yeah. And when I decided to walk off that project, I found a replacement. They gave him a little bit of a better deal. He did get paid for the full time he was there, so that's good. And that's when I was like, okay, well, I walked off this project and I still had a part-time entertainment project on the side. So I could only work 20 hours a week for them. And I was like, this is a great time to really transition more into the health and wellness, see if I can start teaching more yoga classes, maybe get into more studios, design my website so that I can, offer these things to people one-on-one.
Did you ever
Uh,
have moments of doubt? Did you ever have moments along the way, like, a lot of times where it can be like, who am I to think that I'm going to suddenly be some sort of yoga teacher? Should I really be doing this? Were you feeling secure? The steps were gradual enough that you felt like you didn't have imposter syndrome or something. I just think for me, I can imagine having doubt along the way where it would be like, yeah, I think this is the right thing, but then is it? I don't know. Did you have any of that, or were you fortunate enough not to have any doubts?
I definitely did have doubts and those thoughts of, okay, what am I doing? I'm walking away from a lucrative career to be a struggling yoga teacher in LA.
Were there other people too? Like, did you have family members who were in on any of this decision making, or no? Because sometimes other people around you, even if they're friends, even if they love you very much, sometimes those people can be scared of your change because it's uncertain and they just want you to be safe. So, like, did you have any of that? And the reason I'm asking is just because, in case anybody out there is going through something similar and they're like, oh my gosh, should I listen to the doubt? Like, these people are saying, what are you doing?
Yeah, my family didn't quite understand where that was coming from.
Mhm.
So they definitely did question it. And they're like, but you spent like all this time and money on your grad school. And I'm like, believe me, I know. I am aware of the decision that I am making. It is hard, but I am here and I am making it. So sometimes I would say all that to them or something similar to that. Sometimes I just wouldn't say anything
Wow.
because they're gonna have their thoughts, and I knew that I couldn't listen to it because I was already having doubts of, okay, I'm like, well, nothing like super tragic happened in my life. So like what gives me the credibility to talk about it? I'm like, well, so many people do need this. Like, we aren't taught emotional regulation or really emotional intelligence. We're expected that it's like, okay, you either have it or you don't. And while there is some truth to that, you can also work on building it yourself and kind of train yourself to become more emotionally aware. So I knew that if I really listened to like what the naysayers in my family were saying, or even some of my coworkers, because they would be like, why are you doing this? Like, do you make more money doing that? And I'm like, well, I mean, not really, but it's also not about the money as to why I'm doing this. So when I would have those doubts for myself, I would do something to like learn more about those. And for me, at that point, I already knew that doing yoga was a way to help me process some of those things. So when I would start to get really anxious, I would do yoga and I'd have a journal by my mat to write things as they came up. So that was a big part of my practice in moving through doubt. And ultimately, I just knew that my body and my emotions felt better. It was more in alignment to do yoga. And I would often laugh about it because I never thought that I would become, the person who makes sure that they eat organic, does yoga all the time. So when I was turning into that person, I couldn't help but find the irony in it, because I'm like, if someone told me 5 years ago I was just going to do a complete 180 and become like a hippie yoga teacher, I would have laughed in their faces. But being at that point in my life and living it, it also felt right. So as crazy as it was and might have looked to some people in my world, I also knew that it felt better and felt more in alignment because it didn't feel like I was putting on a role, or acting a certain way, which is really how I felt the entire time. Pretty much I was in the entertainment industry.
That's interesting because, like, all of this ties back to what you're doing now and these discoveries. I think it's fascinating that you went from this, and I get this sense from the story that you're sharing that it's this sort of sad and lonely place where you're sort of escaping from your life. You're getting through the day. And the way you get through the day, you like muster through the evening and then you go through another day. And this is supposed to be the thing that is fulfilling you, and it's not. And then you make these connections between how is my body feeling? And I know this. At that point, you knew nothing else other than I'm doing this to avoid feeling. And I also feel better when I'm doing yoga. And then these ties to what you're learning about how you feel in your body and what this is informing you of ends up tying into this whole focus of the work that you do now, which I think is really fascinating. Can you talk to me a little bit more about like the nervous system and how these lessons that you learned about you and your body and the training that you were receiving, how this has led to things like the Neuro-Resonance Method? Because that didn't come from a business plan. That came from something else. That came from your experience. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yes, the Neuro-Resonance Method was definitely not a premeditated business plan. I actually didn't intend to have my own health and wellness practice that I have now. Like, if you asked me if any of this was my goal, it wasn't. It all just evolved naturally, which is another reason why I feel that I'm in that proper place, that alignment that I needed to be in that was lacking in the other industry. So what I realized is that my nervous system had been dysregulated most of my life, really, because things would happen and I'm the type of person that I will do something to distract myself, whether that's work, school. As we've learned, that also goes to addictions. So when I would get dysregulated, I would remove myself from the situation, thinking that that's like the positive thing, that's what you should do. And then I would go do something completely different, whether it was an academic thing or taking on more work and more projects. So once I had realized that as I'm stepping back from entertainment, that my body has been more dysregulated, I know it as dysregulated, and to me, that's normal. So I had to find this new baseline for my body. How did it feel to relax the nervous system? For a while, I didn't know. And I was drawn to, like, through my yoga journey, I discovered Reiki and sound healing. And both of those things are designed to help trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's getting you into your relaxed state of mind, finding that calmness. And the more that I would expose myself to that, the more that I could feel what a calm nervous system physically felt in my body.
Wow.
I have a tendency to tense my neck and my shoulders as of just the responsibility of things.
Yeah.
And when I would become consciously aware and exploring the nervous system, I noticed that there was a spot where I felt so calm and relaxed that I could let go of the tension. And I built that up from there, of learning how different emotions felt in my body. Where did I feel it in the body? Is there a tightness? Is there like a little pain or a temperature shift? And once I understood that, it was leading me into different thought patterns, because different thoughts, there's some sort of energetic charge, even in the doubts, like I'm worthless, or how can I do this? Like you start to just like fold in on yourself when you're thinking those things. So your subconscious, like making the body shrink, because that's what you're energetically doing to yourself. And noticing that there was a pattern of thoughts happening, I really like cognitive behavioral therapy, and that was one of my focuses when I was studying it in undergrad. So I went and got a cognitive behavioral therapy life coaching training so that I could use it to help analyze and reframe my own thoughts, because I'm like, this works. And I was like, oh, I can, use it on clients. And as I was going through the training, I'm like, I should just use this on me, because so many of the examples were like, find a thought that you have and do this tracker and write down what evidence is supporting it. I'm like, well, this is, if I already have to do it, I'm going to do it on real things. And I kept using it and working with it on myself so that I could shift my thought patterns from being very negative and self-loathing in a way to something that was more loving and optimistic. So that was the physical and the mental aspect of it. And I noticed, as I was saying earlier, how much sound healing was really helping me to relax. And sometimes it would bring up memories of random things that I had forgotten about. I'm like, oh, well, that did have an impact on me. So what was the impact? Or did I learn something new from revisiting that memory? And that was helping me move through things. Similar with Reiki, I would have a few sessions and I could notice the energy shifting. And sometimes I would feel, most often than not, I would feel lighter than I did when I walked in, like an emotional burden had been lifted. So by doing all four of those things for myself, a lot of people would notice that there was like a shift and be like, what are you doing? You look so good. Like you just like seem more upbeat and happy. And I would tell them the different things that I was doing for myself, and they would inquire about it for themselves. Like, how would they do that? How could they look into it? Some people would ask me to help them. And because I was getting all these inquiries about it, I was like, well, I guess like people are kind of asking me to step into the role of the teacher. So maybe that's what I embrace. And that's when I started my business.
Wow.
So like people want like have been asking me to do these things. So like now here are these things. These are my offerings. So that is how the method was born. As I used it on myself, people started noticing it. And for the first several years, I started doing it. It was all kind of a la carte. So you could do Reiki, sound healing, you could get the emotional support coaching, and, the body embodiment with that.
Wow.
And only last spring did I start to integrate it all as a method. So the method altogether
Wow.
is relatively new, but things I've been doing for almost 9 years now. So
That's fascinating. So wait, the neuro-resonance method it sort of brings in the cognitive behavioral. I'm trying to keep in mind like all the things that you mentioned. So please forgive me if I'm not getting it, if I'm butchering it. But it's the sound healing, right? There's an element of that. There is the Reiki, so the energy work, right? Is that part of it? Yes.
Yes.
I should let you describe it. So the neuro-resonance method is what? It's these elements together.
Yeah. So the Neuro-Resonance Method is a all-comprehensive neurosystems regulation technique. It takes into account the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the energetic body. There's a lot of times when we have something come up, like we're just like, okay, well, how does the physical body feel? How does the human in me feel about this? But we're not just a physical body. We also are energetic beings. So there's energy flowing through us, around us. And I think a lot of people know that when you don't process something, it can live definitely in your energy. And then it becomes to the point where it goes into the physical and can start manifesting. So the Neuro-Resonance Method is a way to look at all of those different types. By using the cognitive behavioral therapy, we're working with what the mind thinks and also learning how to reprogram it. Because you can have one set of thoughts, but if those thoughts are disturbing you for whatever reason or feel misaligned with how you want to feel and how you want to think, we've got to identify what those are so we can program in what it is that you do want.
Wow. Wow. That's big stuff. I mean, especially I think even the focus of this podcast, I'm so fascinated by collecting people's sideways stories. I think one of the common themes that happens is that when someone faces a sideways moment, things have gone sideways, they can't avoid it, their life gets shaken up. Oftentimes there's this question around their identity on who am I now, whether it is who am I in relation to other people, who am I now that the career doesn't feel right, who am I now that I'm a caretaker in this situation or I'm no longer the caretaker in a situation. And I can imagine that the work that you're describing is something that would be really helpful for people who are in that place, because there is a measure of clarification that they're looking for, of understanding themselves better, of not just who they've been, but who they want to be, And then also healing. I don't know any of us that get through life without having some sort of degree of, dealing with some wounds that we sometimes have been able to heal, and sometimes they are lying there kind of waiting for us to figure out what we need to figure out to deal with them. And so I was talking to you before we started recording about how I feel like I am also coming to terms with my own situation in my nervous system, with understanding that things that I thought that I could suppress before and like push away and like I'll be strong and muster through, I've discovered the older that I get that those things don't really go away. They kind of they're there waiting to be dealt with. And so learning how to process them in a healthy way and what to do with that is something that I think that some of the work that you're talking about doing, that something like the neuro-resonance method would help people with.
Absolutely. And that's also why it's here to help people who are going through moments like that, because it can be a lonely place when you're making that realization of how you had been living your life is no longer serving you, whether that's, moving through an addiction, moving through a career change or relationship ending, or even just moving through grief, because sometimes we lose somebody and then that causes a whole trickle down effect of reflecting on your own self and your own life and who are you now that this person is gone. So not only does it have like the talk therapy style component, we're also getting it on the energetic level with the Reiki and the sound healing, right? And sometimes you might be so stressed out that you just don't know what it feels like to have your body relax. So that's also where the sound healing and the Reiki are beneficial, because it is an exercise in learning how to let go. And it doesn't mean that you don't have thoughts. It just means that you're kind of taking a deep breath in and not having to like recoil as you exhale. You're just letting yourself be.
As you're saying this, I'm like taking the breath in to see like, how do I feel? Because honestly, as you've talked about these things, I don't know that I know what it's like to truly be relaxed. I mean, I'm one of those people that can go and get a massage and all of the stuff, and I'll be tense, that constantly I'm crunching up my shoulders and have all the tension there. And I laugh about it, but it is something that I've watched as, I lost my mom a year and a half ago. My dad is older. And I've watched as their bodies have carried the stress of their lives and the impact of that on them at a relatively young age compared to when their parents passed. And so I think that I have witnessed the burdens of carrying that tension in the body. And I'm hyper aware, I think, right now of the way that I might also be carrying some of that. So for people like me who might be out there who are like, yeah, this sounds like something that I need to know more about, what are some of the early first steps? I mean, obviously reach out to you, look into your information and stuff like that. But what do you suggest for people that are wanting to find out a little bit more about steps they can take to begin to maybe learn more about this, or to just come to know or appreciate the wisdom that their body or the energy that they have carries in a different way?
First off, just thank you for sharing your story a little bit there. And that's got to be really hard. So it's just inspiring that you're still going and facing it and now using it as a way to look at your own life and examine different things for yourself so you can choose to be different. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. Well, I have a daughter. So, like, I'm trying to learn so that I can also help.
Right.
But, it's like there are certain things that I feel like each one of us, we can only be ready to learn them when we're ready to learn them. And
Exactly.
I don't know that I understood that as much until I went through some of this stuff. So, it's like, I think that going through some of my own sideways moments has led me to be open to learning more about this stuff, because I see how these things have impacted the people around me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what we're here for as humans. Like, we get to learn life and we get to feel all the different range of emotions. And some people can consider that a blessing or a curse, but that's really what is so beautiful about being human, is we have a whole spectrum that we get to connect with. Because if we didn't experience loss and grief, then we wouldn't know what it is to really have love and that joy and that warmth that you can get from that type of relationship in your life. So on that note, I would say, like, the first step to working towards shifting is to stop judging your own emotions,
Mm.
because a lot of times when we feel lower vibrational emotions such as anger, guilt, maybe cynicism, or being our own inner critic. Like, we get tough on ourselves. We're like, why am I feeling this? I don't want to feel this. Like, well, this isn't fun. And what you think does have a way of coming back to you and does manifest. So when you're telling yourself, well, this isn't fun, this sucks, I feel this way all the time, that's what you're going to be met back with. So instead of kind of shaming your emotions, start asking, like, okay, well, this is uncomfortable. Nobody wants to feel angry or upset or betrayed or depressed. But let's start understanding why the emotion is here. Is there a reason for it? Has it been building up over time? Where can you grow through this rather than trying to suppress it? Because clearly suppressing it and ignoring it is not working. So then start to inquire about it, just asking questions, or even just letting yourself sit in that feeling. You can set a timer for like 2 minutes and just like let yourself feel it. And then you can set a timer for another 2 minutes to be like, okay, well, what would the opposite of that feel like? Can I even imagine the opposite emotion? If I can't imagine the opposite emotion, what is something where I feel just marginally a little bit better? And that's starting to train your body and your nervous system to have a sensation of what those feelings, how they feel and are embodied in your body. And so then when you start to think about them, your physical body has a memory recall. So it'll be like, okay, I can activate this. And the goal is that the more that you work on tapping into that feeling and integrating it into the physical body, you'll be able to stay in those emotions for longer than what you previously could. So
Interesting. Okay.
it's like you're going to the gym to build up physical muscle. We're working on that energetic and emotional connection.
Wow. I love that. That's a great exercise to share. And so I know what I'll be trying this week and and trying to do. I'll have to let you know how it goes.
Yeah, please do let me know. I'd love to hear your experience.
So we've covered a lot of your story and about how you've gotten to the part where you're able to offer the things that you do to people today, and even how people can begin to take the first steps to understanding a little bit more about how they can do some of this work. If someone listening today is in the middle of their own sideways story, their own sideways moment, and they haven't figured out what they're going to do next, or even they don't feel quite stable in where things are, is that a good place to start? Or what feels honest to say to that person right now?
I mean, that does feel like a good place to start. Really, the good place to start is when you feel ready to make that change, right? Because it's not going to happen overnight. It can take a while. Like for me, it was roughly 18 months. And some people, it can take a little bit longer. Some people can make it faster if they want, but it's not about doing it at a certain speed that makes it better. It's the pace that feels comfortable for you. And you can't change for someone else. So when you yourself are ready, you've acknowledged, okay, there's a big disconnect between how I'm living and how I feel. So like, I don't want this to be the norm. How do I work on it? Once you're in that spot of being willing to do it, that's the perfect time to start, because you're already choosing yourself. And that's the spot that you need to be, is when you're ready to choose yourself.
Well said. Kathryn, thank you so much for just sharing your story, sharing your honesty, and sharing a sort of a path forward for people when they feel like if it's the right time to hear it and the right time to take it, and for staying in this conversation with us, because I think that just sharing our own stories is something that people can learn from, and it's just understand they're not alone. And so I really appreciate your time today. You know, this is one of the reasons that things go sideways exists is to remind people that breakdown is not the opposite of wisdom, that it's often where things begin. And so I just want to encourage anyone who's listening to this, of course, reach out to Kathryn if that feels like the right thing to do. We'll have information about the best ways to find out more about her work in the show notes. And to everyone listening, if your body is asking for your attention, you do not have to translate that into answers yet. You may just need to stop ignoring what it's trying to tell you. So listen, right? Listen to your body, be safe, and we'll see you next time.